Welcome to the Pulitzer Center Campus Consortium podcast. Today's conversation is with Pulitzer Center grantee Neenma Ebeledike, and she is a Nigerian multimedia journalist passionate about amplifying voices of marginalized communities. And currently she is working with the Sacramento Observer as a multimedia journalist. She focuses on storytelling that highlights social justice issues, which you'll hear about today, environmental challenges, and cultural resilience. Her work has earned her recognition, including the Ida B. Wells, amazing, I love her, Investigative Reporting Fellowship. She's a recent alumna of the UC Berkeley Graduate School of Journalism, and we're really excited to have her here today. And I'm your host, Michelle Stonis, Assistant Professor of History and Pulitzer Center Campus Consortium Co-Director. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me today.
You're welcome. You're the journalist. Okay. I want to talk to you about your documentary, which you're so gracious to screen it at Glendale today. And it's called Allensworth Rising, A Fight for Water. It's 21 minutes long, and it follows Sherry Hunter, a lifelong resident and community leader in her tireless effort to secure safe, clean water for this historic town. You got me at historic and justice and environmentalism. So could you tell us about the historical background of the town and how it ties to their current fight for safe, clean drinking water?
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me here. I'm so excited to be here and to screen the film at Glendale Community College today. The history of Allensworth is very interesting. As I did my research on this film, I came to find out that Allensworth is the first historically Black town in California. So it's the first town to be founded and financed by Black people. And Allensworth, Colonel Allensworth, who is the founder of the town, he moved to Allensworth in 1908. That was when the town was founded. And he was a former slave. So he moved from, I think, Kentucky, where he was born, to Allensworth, where he wanted to gain freedom, wanted to have a town where Black people could thrive, could develop, could be free from segregation. And that was what he did. He moved to Allensworth and he created a beautiful town where, Black people were thriving, there were good schools, everything was going well. And he bought this town from white farmers at a very low price. They knew the land was not fertile, even from the inception of the town. So that was something we found out that was very interesting. And so when the town started, it was good. Life was good. And it went on till when Allensworth died in 1914, if I'm correct. Yes, 1914. He died in a motor accident, which was very devastating. And that was when the town started having issues. So from there, things started to, regressed. Businesses moved out of Allensworth. Then they found out there was arsenic in the groundwater. Now, it's interesting to note that arsenic has always been in their groundwater, even from 1908. But the thing about arsenic is the levels change. So some days you go to Allensworth, the levels are high. Some days you go to Allensworth, the levels are low. But regardless of, the level of arsenic in the water, it's still harmful. According to Dr. Gadgil, who was the researcher that we focused on in our film, he said consuming arsenic, whether low levels or high levels of arsenic over a period of time, could cause cancer and other diseases. So, it's not safe. And so now we have Sherry Hunter, who is the main character in our film, who is fighting, for clean water in the town. She reached out to Dr. Gadgil when she heard he had this, filtering system that removes arsenic from the water, and brought him down to Allensworth. And he was more than gracious, to extend his, help. He got grants personally to help this town. And yes, residents of the town have been taking agency, to help themselves, get this arsenic out of the water, since the state isn't really coming to their aid.
You were sharing about Professor Gadgil and the support he gave to your project, and also the amazing filtration system that he just recently developed. Could you tell us about the filtration system, where he's tested it, and maybe how that's a little bit of hope for Allensworth?
So Dr. Gadgil has developed a filtration system which he has tested in India. So he's originally from India, and he's tested that in India and it worked. He had people like use it because there's also arsenic levels in the water in some parts of India. There's arsenic levels in the water. So yeah, it worked in India. And when Sherry reached out to Dr. Gadgil to, try and test his system in Allensworth, he has hopes that's going to work there because it's worked in India. But the only problem now that he mentioned to us was the cost of labor, because in, the wages are different from the States. So it's way lower to get people to, run a system. But here in the States, you need more money, insurance, all of those things, to keep people working, to keep people happy, right? So it's like, it's so different. So that's another thing he's trying to consider. Maybe the community can take agency again, to try and run that system. But right now, currently, he's, put the system in Allensworth and they're currently testing. So that's where they're at right now.
And they'll have results, I believe,
by the end of the year. So they should be able to know, okay, this is working and this is how we're going to move forward.
Things I really love about your work is that you chose to do it in such a visual format with a documentary. You're really active on social media. I think it's just such a culturally responsive way of getting this information out. There's a world where you could have made a book or done a really long form article in a long form magazine, but getting this story in front of more eyes and evoking that empathy as people watch and they see themselves in Sherry or what that would be like to have to find bottled water to give to your pet for their whole life,
right?
Or to see your local cemeteries being trampled on. I think that's just so brilliant that you did as a visual form. Have you always wanted to work in filmmaking?
Yeah, I've always wanted to work in filmmaking. I've always made videos, like my early
welcome back to my channel videos, or like what kind of videos?
Honestly, like welcome back to my channel videos, short form videos, TikTok videos, all the forms of videos. I've always been interested in visual, forms of storytelling. So photo, video, graphics, data, data visualization, just how can I, see what I'm reading? Like, I just don't want to write words. I want to show it, right? So I've always been that person, that I wanted to like show. And I've done this for the longest time. But this, Allensworth Rising, a fight for water, this is big. I haven't done anything like this. And yeah, I'm really proud of this work. I'm proud I got to work with my co-director and friend, Isabella Marsvan, because without her, this film wouldn't have been made. I'm really glad, to my school, Berkeley Journalism, that gave us, the chance to dream big. Because the whole process of making the documentary was a lot, but our professors where they're, helping us through the way. I'm grateful to Pulitzer Center for their funding. They're the backbone of this project. I keep saying it. And I'm very glad that they're helping us to publicize this project. Another thing I like to say is, like, I know the focus of this project is on, the water issue, but the first time we did the screening at Bamford Theater in Berkeley, what really got people's attention, apart from the water issue, was the history. So people were like, oh my God, I knew nothing. They're like, I knew nothing. They're like, oh my God, what is Allensworth? Really? The first Black town?
Yeah.
And, in California? I never knew that existed. I
Why
knew that was
that on a social studies test?
That's what we're
in
thinking.
The curriculum. Right? You want to talk about stories being erased.
Honestly. So,
because how much do you hear about the 49ers in the gold rush? Okay, I'll just stop there. But you're making those resources, right? Like a teacher eventually would have access to this and be able to show it to their high school or college classroom. And making it in that visual format with the support of all of your stakeholders is so important.
Yes.
That's wonderful.
We're so glad to be here.
Oh, you're wonderful. One of the kind of themes just about what you talked about, and also I think that comes from the documentary itself, is the importance of community. That, right, like, the support of the Pulitzer Center, obviously the support of your grad program, your professor mentors, your colleague and friend and co-director, Isabella. And but you see it in the film too, right? Of like knowing your neighbors, knowing that's not just an issue with your water, but it's like a town, a community problem, right? But the importance of community, right? And I think I feel like that is a backbone of your work too. Like whatever you're going to do in the future, right? Like the reporting you're doing now for the Sacramento Observer, or maybe the follow up on Allensworth, of like it's always going back to like human agency, connection, human resilience. And like it's not like Sherry sounds like an amazing person. but she's also not the savior of the town.
Exactly.
She's like bringing people together
Yeah.
and fighting in a way that like others can join her. And in the same way, right, like the professor you mentioned,
Yeah.
right, like created this amazing filtration system,
Yeah.
but that took funding.
Exactly.
That took knowing there was a problem.
Exactly.
Right? Like it took
Mhm.
all those little components.
Yeah.
I think that's so brilliant that
Mhm.
you're in that orbit too, but you've made it so accessible for people to like join in.
Yeah.
You know, like maybe someday there'll be a way that we can sponsor something
Exactly.
or, you know, figure out how to use that filtration system
Yes.
somewhere else.
Mhm.
So I really appreciate you making it visual and making it human because, yeah, sometimes those articles get lost, right? And so
Exactly.
making it visual.
Yes.
Just again, that story of resiliency
Exactly.
and community and agency,
Exactly.
right? Of like, how amazing would it be for this town that's in Central California, right? Kind of a
Yeah.
drive-through kind of,
Yes.
you know, place
Yes.
right off the freeway.
Yes.
If all of a sudden, right, they can train local residents to run
Exactly.
these programs
Mhm.
and to benefit, right, from those
Right.
jobs and the skill training.
Yes.
You know what? Another thing that just came to mind
Yeah.
is representation
Hmm.
which and I'm always talking to my students, right, about like studying how history
Yeah.
became history.
Right.
And it's not that the sources necessarily change.
Yeah.
Sometimes new things are discovered, but often it's the questions that we have,
Yes.
right? And it's new
Yes.
people coming to the table and asking
Mhm.
those questions, right? And so the fact that Professor Gadgil, he's
Yeah.
like, I'm from India. I know I have this problem. Let me work on it. And then it just happens to
Yeah.
help other communities,
Yes.
right? Or you're like, the first Black town, I'm interested in this. I want to
Exactly.
know that, you know, and I have this lived experience from Nigeria of like, I can't always rely on the
Exactly.
government. So like,
Yes.
it's so important, right? That's why representation matters,
Yes.
right? It's
Mhm.
not that the story is, you know, sometimes I have been told one time of when are we going to learn the real history? And what they meant by was, right, like what had been taught before,
Right.
you already,
Yes.
right, the top down
Yes.
of like, this is the real history
Yes.
too, just
Mhm.
because it's not taught in K through 12. Right, like
Mm.
Allensworth isn't on the SAT question that you have to
Yes.
take or the state standard, even though you're going to
Mhm.
learn about the 49ers, you're not going to
Yeah.
learn about Allensworth, right? Or
Yeah.
the man who founded the town.
Yes.
But that's because people haven't been asking those questions and then doing the work and then
Yeah.
making the resources and then
Mhm.
it cycles back around. So it's
Yeah.
so important that different folks are at the table to do this work. So thank you for
I
doing
agree.
that, right? Like
Thanks. Thank
you were able to ask those
Yes.
questions and like pluck that idea out. You knew
Yes.
this story was going to be told. Didn't have to be you, but
Yeah.
someone had to pluck it out,
Exactly.
right? Of was
Exactly.
floating around.
Yes.
Like, no, that's worthy. Like that's
Yes.
worthy of
Yeah.
inquisition and
Mhm.
attention. So awesome. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, Michelle.
Any parting words, anything you would hope that someone who watches this film would do, or maybe like next steps of how do we support your work? How do we support this issue?
So I think for now, we're just gonna be publicizing this work because for us as, you know, we want to publicize Allensworth, educate people about Allensworth. You know, right now they have a filtration system that's being tested. So we're hoping that, you know, works by the end of the year. But for now, our priority is publicizing the video and educating people on Allensworth so they know their history. Because I feel like you can't move forward without knowing the past. So you just have to know the past to move forward. So I think this film, you know, talks about the past in a beautiful way and allows us to celebrate our history. Yeah, and a big shout out to Isabella Marsban, my co-director and friend, for working with me on this. Couldn't have done it without her. Thank you.
Wonderful. Where can
Yes.
people find you online?
You can follow me on Instagram at Ebeledike Neenma _voiceover. So I'm also a voiceover artist. Then you can follow me. You can follow me on TikTok at Neenma's Media Journal and on LinkedIn at Ebeledike Neenma.
We'll put those in the show notes.
Yes, because
Awesome.
they won't be able to spell it. Yeah.
Thank you so much to Glendale Community College for supporting this work. Thank you to Neenma for being with us today
Thank
and
you.
for the work and advocacy that you're doing and just like much continued success to you. Thank you to the Pulitzer Center for supporting the work of our campus consortium. And thank you to the Social Sciences Division and Katia, our extraordinaire et al. We really appreciate, right? It takes community to make things like this happen. And so we're just continuing to watch you shine and we'll be rooting for you. Thanks so
you.
much.
Thank
See
you.
you next time.